Hello, everybody. My name is Michali Friedman. For those of you who don't know me, and I am a fellow therapist who comes onto the OK Clarity platform, and I am here to take over OK Clarity's Instagram for this next half an hour. Tonight, I'm really excited. We're going to be talking about the love languages. So the way I'm going to kind of structure it tonight is that I'm going to just give a brief introduction to the love languages, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions that OK Clarity followers have submitted beforehand about the love languages. And if we have time towards the end, then I'd be happy to answer additional questions. Welcome everybody who's coming. I just want to repeat again, my name is Michali Friedman, and I am really happy to be joining OK Clarity's Instagram today to do this live on the 5 love languages. So the 5 love languages is basically a concept that was developed by someone named Gary Chapman. He wrote the book, The 5 Love Languages. And there are so many different versions of this book, geared for singles, geared for children, teens, couples. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your excitement. I'm excited too. And so this framework is really not based on science. And I want to just be very clear from the get-go. This is not a scientific modality. This has not been researched in the science world at all. But the reason that it's so sticky and so catchy is because so many people relate to this idea of wanting to show love to somebody and it just doesn't land, right? We've all been there where we thought we were doing some nice gesture for somebody that we really cared about, and they were kind of like, thank you. And then we see that they never do anything with it, or it doesn't really seem to hit the spot. And we've also definitely have all been there where someone tried to give to us and it certainly did not hit the spot, right? So whether it's someone brought over a meal and you're just like, thank you so much, but that doesn't really do it for me, or someone brought over a gift and that didn't land, or someone gave you a compliment and you're just like, thanks, but I feel awkward and I don't know what to do with this, right? We've all been in that place where people have given to us and it just didn't feel right for us. Now, the thing is that oftentimes when we're in deeper, more intense, more intimate relationships, whether romantic or not, this matters so much more, because the way that we're going to be giving to someone in terms of love has to be in a language that the person is able to receive. Otherwise, they may appreciate us very much, but they may not feel loved by us. And this can be at the core of so much conflict with couples or other types of deep, close, intimate relationships. So the way that the love languages work is there, by the way, there's a quiz in the back of the main book that you can take to determine your love language. And there's also online quizzes that you can take to determine your love language. What happens if you get different answers? That's a very common question that I get. I'm going to address that soon. But here are the 5 love languages. There's acts of service, which means any kind of action that someone can take that is in service to you in some kind of way, right? So whether it's going food shopping or sweeping or cleaning the bathrooms or doing the laundry or giving someone you care about a ride, right? Those are all acts of service that impact the person. Then there's words of affirmation, which are basically we're using words to either praise, appreciate, compliment the other person. Then there's quality time, which is spending a specific amount of time and a specific quality of time with another person. And then there's gift giving, which is to give gifts. And then the last one is physical touch, which there's a lot of myths and misconceptions about that a lot of people jump to, all guys like physical touch. But that physical touch doesn't necessarily mean physical intimacy as much as it means just physical contact, and it's going to vary from person to person. Now, going along with the theme of languages, Gary Chapman talks about that each language can have so many different dialects, right? If you look at the United States of America, and a lot of us are from all over the place here tonight, but we all have different accents. So if you're from California, like me, you're going to sound different than someone who's from Brooklyn. And if you're from Brooklyn, you might sound like somebody you may not sound like somebody from Boston, right? And if you're from Boston, you may not sound like somebody who's from Kentucky, right? We all have different accents. We speak in different ways. There's different dialects. And that is important because when it comes to each of these 5 love languages, even within the language itself, then it can look different from person to person. So for example, if let's say my love language is quality time, for me, let's say I might really enjoy sitting in silence with somebody, maybe watching a movie, or I might prefer to play a game with the person, while another person may prefer to use quality time as their love language and have like a DMC, a deep, meaningful conversation with somebody and really talk about, different deep ideas, right? So it's the same love language, but it's just manifested and expressed in a different kind of way. And so it's really, really important and so helpful to understand what our own love language is. And then with that clarity, we can communicate to our loved ones how to give to us in a way that's meaningful and leaves us feeling loved. And in addition, it's really, really important to understand the love languages of the people that we love so that we can give to them in the most meaningful of ways. I think also Gary Chapman talks about in his book that one other way of figuring out what your love language is to look at what you complain the most about missing in your life, right? So if you're saying something like, oh, no one ever says they appreciate me, or no one gives me compliments, or no, everyone's always so busy, no one ever has time for me, or no one's helping me, I need help, right? If you pay attention to those compliments, you can start to kind of discern what the love language is. Similarly, we tend to give in our love language. So notice when you want to give to a friend who's having a hard time, right? What's your go-to way of giving to them? Is it you're going to watch their kids? Is it you're going to cook them a meal? Is it you're going to call them on the phone? Is it that you want to send them, a gift card to Amazon or Bath and Body Works or wherever, right? You want to think about what's your go-to way of giving. And oftentimes that's going to lead you down the path to what your own love language is. Now, I want to also just say before I get into the questions, just because we give love in a way that's meaningful to us, but it doesn't hit the spot for the other person, doesn't mean that it doesn't do anything for the person. Okay. I would say the majority of us need every single one of these languages expressed at different points in time in different ways. However, there tends to be 1 to 2 more dominant languages. But for most of us, even if we're being given in a way that is not like our main language, we can still very much appreciate the gesture. It's more that, if it's like our pattern of never getting the kind of love that we need, then that's when it warrants many conversations, so that we can kind of set ourselves up for success and our relationships up for success. Okay, so with that introduction, let's get into some of these questions. Okay, we have a few. Okay, questions from our community. How can you use your love language to best support yourself? I love this question. Okay, so Gary Chapman, by the way, this is my first time reading these questions. I like doing things very spontaneously. So Gary Chapman in the singles edition talks more about this, but okay, I'm going to go through very briefly each of the love languages and explain how you might best support yourself through your language. So let's say your love language is physical touch. There are so many somatic exercises that you can do to kind of ground and anchor yourself and show yourself love. So whether it's holding yourself in an embrace, whether it's nurturing your body through taking a bath or getting a massage, there's also really cool guided meditations for connecting and nurturing and loving your body. I actually just did one this morning and it was fantastic. If anyone's interested, they can message me after this live and I can send you the link. But there are so many things that you can do on a somatic body, physical level to give yourself that love. Now, when it comes to, let's say, gift giving, one thing that you can do, which is a lot of fun, is get yourself a gift on Amazon every so often. So whether, I know some women like to treat themselves to gifts or something special on Rosh Chodesh. Happy Rosh Chodesh, everybody. Actually, it's probably not Rosh Chodesh anymore. And what you can do is there's an option when you get something on Amazon that you can check off, like this is a gift. And you can also write yourself a nice note that goes along with the gift. And then you're giving yourself a gift that obviously is meaningful to you. With quality time, same thing. You can spend good quality time with yourself, whether it's in meditation or in prayer. Prayer is kind of with Hashem, so that's a little bit different, but you can journal, you can just think, you can listen to music, right? You can, however time you like to spend with others, you can also spend it with yourself. Acts of service, you can clean up your home, you can organize a drawer in your dresser, you can organize your closet. And then I'm missing one. And then words of affirmation. You can write yourself love letters. You can write yourself notes that you put in random places. You can fill up a little jar of different notes, and every day you can pick one. You can look at yourself in the mirror, kind of like Truman Show style, and say something loving and kind to yourself as you're brushing your teeth before you start your day. So these are different ways that you can best support yourself depending on what your love language is. Okay, next question. My love language is gifts. Love getting people gifts or just some small notes and stuff as encouragement. I hope they appreciate it as much as I do. So I think it's awesome that you know yourself so well and you know that you love giving gifts. And by the way, a lot of people who have this love language, they get a bad rep because it sounds like very superficial, like, oh, you just like getting gifts. But the truth is that you can make gifts so personal and so meaningful to the person you're giving it. And it's really your heart that goes into it. That's really what counts. So it's not a superficial thing. There's all the feeling behind it is what makes it so beautiful and meaningful and intimate. I think that, and this is kind of like what I touched on a little bit before in the introduction, it's very possible that the people you're giving gifts to appreciate it. Now, do they feel loved? That's a different question, because if gift giving is not their love language, then they may not feel that deep love that you're feeling in the giving of the gift. And so the most loving thing that you can do is to ask these people, what is your love language? What is the most meaningful way that I can give to you that you just feel so deeply cared about and loved by me? It may not be gift giving. And then that's the ultimate gift of love, when you're giving something to someone in their language, when it's not necessarily so natural for you. Okay. I see someone wrote a question. I'm going to get to questions if we have time at the end, because I want to just address the ones that were previously submitted. But thank you for asking a question. Okay, the third question is, I still can't work out my love lingo. Maybe I'm a mix of two or a few. And if so, how to know? Thanks. Love this idea. It's so helpful. So I love to take credit for it, but it's Gary Chapman's idea. So as I said before, it's very possible you're a mix of two. A lot of people are, myself included. My husband likes to joke that I'm really all five. They're all my dominant ones, but it's not true. There's a couple that are not my dominant ones. I think the best way to figure it out is to kind of try each one out for size. And kind of with the first question that was asked, try it out first on yourself and see what feels the best, what resonates the most. And then also just start to pay attention to how different people give to you and see what hits the spot for you. It's very possible that you are a mix. Now, also, here's another little thing is that, just to make things a little bit more complicated, that if we have more than one love language, then sometimes at different points in time in the day or the week or the month or the year or the season, we might appreciate one language over another. So if, let's say, a person is really, really sick and normally their love language isn't acts of service, but for that particular time, that's what's going to make them feel the most loved, right? So then the people who really love them and are close to them are going to have to pivot to show them love in that kind of way when they're communicating that. So it gets a little bit complicated because we have to constantly be on our toes and continue to have that self-awareness and asking ourselves, okay, what do I need here? What is meaningful to me? What hits the spot? And let me communicate that to the people that I love and who love me. Okay, here's another question. It's a little bit of a longer one. So I never got hugged as a child or kissed even when I asked, and now I constantly think everything is fake. even a favor or an invitation. I'm constantly longing for hugs and kisses, not, God forbid, anything inappropriate or sexual related as a single. That's the only love I relate to. Possibly in the 5 types of love, the one of touch. Everything else my brain thinks is fake and fights it. I'm single and in my 30s, young from man. Now what? Is there hope for me? So I always say to the couples I work with that I'm a hopeless romantic. I cannot be a couples and sex therapist and not be a hopeless romantic. So yes, I would say, just to address your last question first, absolutely there's hope. Now, I think that when we've been traumatized and or neglected, and in this case, I believe that if a child is not touched enough or not at all, then that is a form of neglect, because touch is a basic human need that every single person, including people that are not touchy people, have. And so if we've had that neglect, then what this person is saying is that there's such a deep void in them that they constantly need to fill that void, understandably. So I would say that that's not necessarily, ironically, it's not a guarantee that this is your love language, but what it does tell me is that there is work that needs to be done when it comes to the trauma you've experienced from the neglect in your childhood. And once you've experienced healing from that, then your actual true love language can emerge. It can't emerge when it's covered by this devastation of not being hugged and kissed enough. And that's something that every human being deserves to have. So I would say 100% there's hope. Get yourself into a really good trauma therapy program and treatment. There's so many amazing therapists out there. You can check out the OK Clarity platform and give yourself that gift of healing. And then you can start to unpack what is your love language. Also, the more healing that you do, the more you'll be able to open yourself up in a vulnerable way to other people and actually trust the love, the kind of love that they're giving you. Because when you're saying that you think it's fake and you're fighting it, to me, that's more of a trust thing. And that also can speak to some of the neglect that you've experienced as a child. So I'm rooting for you, and I absolutely think that there's hope. Another question, which is an interesting, more philosophical question, is, are love languages a result of nature or nurture? So I don't know the science. There's no science behind the love languages, but I would imagine that it's a combination of both. I think, like the questioner before, the person's neglect definitely impacted what they think that they need as an adult. And it's the same for all of us, right? Our childhoods inform what we might need as adults, in our relationships and just like out of life. So I think that there is an element of nurture to it. And I think, there's so many actual scientific studies about how powerful of a role genetics play in almost everything that we do and we think. So I would say, just like anything, it's probably a combination. Okay, second to last question. Hiya, I sent the 5 love language quiz to the guy I'm seeing of 2 months, and our answers are just the total opposite. I don't mind this, but I don't think he got the hint that I appreciate different things in the relationship, mainly words of affirmation. And his assumption that we're still going out is the reassurance that he likes me. How do I broach this without seeming critical or needy? Obviously, we need all the 5 points in a relationship, but should I read into it that we prioritize the list differently? Of course, you're going to prioritize the list differently because you're 2 different people and you have 2 different love languages. Now, I just want to normalize that. I would say almost every single couple I've ever met, they don't have the same love language. And it's just kind of like ironic and funny in that way. It's like one person's always cold, one person's always hot, one person likes daytime, one person likes nighttime. It just ends up working out that way. And it's the same thing with love languages. Like oftentimes, like when I talk to couples about this, like one person's like, oh my God, I like all of these except for this last one that I absolutely can't stand. And then of course that's the spouse's love language. So I don't think that it's an issue that you guys have different love languages, and it's normal if you're going to have a different language that you're just going to see the world and prioritize things differently. However, the way that you need love, that is a very important conversation to have with this guy. I think the way that you broach the conversation is you bring up this really cool quiz that you sent him and say, and be very clear that this is something that really matters to you. That, I think the more clear the communication, the better. So saying, you sent him this quiz because essentially you wanted to know what his love language is, because you want to give to him in a way that's meaningful to him. And likewise, you're noticing that there's certain things that you really need from him in the relationship. And you think that you would feel so much more loved and cared about if you're given in a way that's meaningful to you, and engage in a conversation in that kind of way. The last question, and then I can answer questions on here that you guys are putting out there. What to do if your love language is physical touch and you're in an environment where people don't hug and kiss or kiss. So that part is really, really hard. I very much empathize with this person. I think that you want to identify people that you feel close with, that you feel loved by, that you could have this kind of conversation with. And basically, one of the things that you might have to do is start to ask for what you want and what you need, right? So you can say, can I get a hug right now? I could use a hug, right? The people that are healthy and close to you in your life would give you that hug. And for the most part, I think that there's no harm in asking for a hug or asking for a kiss. I think that if you're in an environment where people don't do that, then they might need to be prompted more because it's not in their way of thinking. That doesn't mean that they're against giving it, especially if you have a conversation with the framework of the love languages and say that this is something that just makes me feel so loved. And I know it doesn't really make sense to you, especially with the world, in the world that we come from, but it just does it for me, and I can't explain why. And it's like, in some ways it's so nice and easy. It's like a button. You just hug me and I'm good to go. So I hope that answers your questions. Now I'm going to just scroll up. So just bear with me because I saw that there were some questions. And guys, you can feel free, whoever's on here, to ask more questions because we have a couple more minutes. Okay. So this question is, how do you encourage your significant other to show their love for you using your own love language, words of affirmation, when significant other has already admitted that this is not something he will or can do? So this is a toughie because to me, this has more to do with the relationship dynamic than the love language issue itself, or the love language as a discrepancy itself. Now, I don't know if you're saying there's a huge difference between him saying he can't do something versus he won't do something. I think if he is feeling like inadequate or he doesn't know how to do something, then that's okay. You can be his teacher because you know your love language, right? And you can help him with that. And I can give you some tips for how to do that. But if he's saying he's refusing to do it, meaning he doesn't even want to learn about it, and to me, that's a bigger or deeper issue when it comes to the dynamic and some, character defects that really have to be looked at. And I would recommend couples therapy for that. Because, I don't know what else is going on in the dynamic that would make him say, I'm not giving this to you. I'd also need to get to know him more and know like what are some of his blocks when it comes to words. But if let's say we're going with the former where he just doesn't know how. So this is not the most popular opinion. I know some people are not so into this idea, but I like, the idea of like what I call giving the scripts or feeding the lines to your spouse. So giving your spouse some options of different statements that they can say that would just really be meaningful to you. And the more simple, the better. Whenever you're learning a new skill or forming a new habit, you want to make it easy and convenient and as natural as possible for the person. If you need more information about that, check out James Clear Atomic Habits book. Talks all about that. But you basically want to give him like a simple statement or a couple of statements that he can say that that would be meaningful for you. You can also give him different ideas of like notes that he can leave for you. And if he does well with like reciprocation, so like you start by saying something nice and then he says something nice, and that can also be something. And you can give him just like little prompts also, like thank you for, and like fill in the blank, or I like it when you da 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 da, or you're so good at, or you're so amazing, or I love this part of, and like you have him fill in the blank. But I would first engage in like an overall conversation with him and say like, it sounds like that this is hard for you and this is not a natural way for you to share, to express your love. I want to learn more about that. Like, why do you think that is? Where does that come from? And would you be open to me prompting you or giving you some ideas? Also, like putting reminders in his phone or taking notes so that he can just like copy and paste into a text for you is really helpful too. Same thing with emojis. You know, there's pluses and minuses with technology, but this can be a plus where he can, you know, an emoji can mean a lot. So that's kind of how I'd address that question. Okay, I'm scrolling to the next question. Okay. Do love languages change when one learns to give it to themselves, like they no longer need it from someone else? Great question. So not necessarily. It's more that we can fill our cups a little bit more when we're giving, you know, these things to ourselves. And there's nothing more empowering than being in control of, you know, yourself and your needs. That being said, there is a space in all of us, a part of all of us that needs other people, that needs relationships. Like we can't thrive just on our own in this world. We need other people. And so I think that you can fill your cup yourself as much as you can, and there's still going to be a space that's not going to be filled because it needs to be filled through other relationships. And so you may not be as needing of that from other people, but you're going to still be left with the wanting. And even in a relationship, even if you're giving yourself what you need, it can feel frustrating when a person is consistently not speaking your language. It can make you feel like unseen, unknown, misunderstood. And so I think that the best way to create a deeper intimacy is to be clear on who you are, be clear on what you need and what you want, and think big and dream big, and then communicate those things to those other people that you love and they love you, and then you feel loved by them. That's when like you can really experience that like full cup of love. Okay, will this video be available afterwards on WhatsApp, etc.? I believe it will be. I know that this will be posted to the OK Clarity platform. Okay, another person wrote, there were some stuff tonight that I really needed to hear. Thanks a lot. It means a lot to me. I'm so happy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your feedback. We are so good on time. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining. This is going to be posted on the OK Clarity Instagram platform, and I believe in a few other places too. And you can find me at Embrace Therapy Insta. This is also going to be posted on my page as well. Thank you to all of you for joining. Thank you for your questions, and I will see you next week to discuss another topic. Good night.